I've got to follow that, haven't I? Okay. Well, I think our discussion so far has proved that divorce can be a very challenging experience for all involved. Parents, children, grandparents and even friendship groups. Our work at Dorset Family Matters is based on an approach that aims to promote a healthy transition for children and parents as they make their way through the divorce process. It's a transition or a change that impacts on many, many levels: emotional, social, economic, legal, psychological and on parenting. But you know, divorce isn't the end of a family. It is the reorganisation, in essence, of family life. And that, of course, takes time. Our work at Dorset Family Matters is based on 5 key principles, and many of the key principles will pick up on what you've heard already this morning. The first principle that we have is that we support parents to put the needs of their children first. It's very, very important. And of course, as we've seen, when folks are caught up in a bitter divorce battle, there are intense feelings, you said yourselves, of resentment, of anger, of frustration towards their ex-partner. And it can be difficult for parents to focus on the needs of their children at these difficult times. Children need to know that divorce isn't their fault, that both parents still love them, and that developing an effective co-parenting relationship depends very much on the parents working together to create stability and routine around the children, which is key, I think. And this, of course, ensures that children then grow up believing they have 2 homes where they are loved and cared for. And that's kind of what we all would hope for when there are children around. They move away from a feeling that perhaps they're coming from a broken home. But creating that stable home and that routine is really challenging when there are these intense feelings, as you indicated right at the beginning. We know from the changes that are coming through into the law that it's essential that both parents continue to be involved in the lives of their children, wherever it is practical. The next key principle that our work is based on is supporting parents to create what we call an effective co-parenting relationship. Parents are parents forever. Nothing will change that. Divorce does signal the end, for example, of a romantic relationship. But parents need to develop and maintain an ongoing relationship around the needs of their children. And this requires the development of a new, perhaps business-like relationship and the letting go of any emotional baggage that they as parents carry. We know that children whose parents are able to co-parent effectively are more likely to continue to have a positive relationship with both parents and are less likely to develop behavioural, emotional and academic problems, or have problems themselves as they grow with relationships as they become adults. But we know from our discussion this morning that co-parenting can be a real challenge. It's a change in the relationship from marriage partners to co-parents. And this means that parents are essentially responsible for their own feelings. They have to deal with their own feelings that are non-child related. And this involves not confronting or arguing with the other parent in an ideal world. Okay, so it's important that parents who have divorced are able to put the needs of their children first. I think we'd all agree on that. But this involves, as I say, renegotiating relationship boundaries with an ex-partner to enable an ongoing co-parenting relationship. Parents, I can't say this enough times, parents need to communicate with each other around child-related issues. They need to kind of step aside from their own baggage and anger and frustration and resentment and step into a different type of relationship that is about putting the needs of their children first and being able to communicate effectively. This involves a kind of dissociation and developing an integrity on the part of each parent. Dissociation meaning that their discussions are based in the now, are neutral and objective, and integrity in putting their child's needs first. The third principle is that children need an age-appropriate explanation of divorce. I come across many parents who've overloaded their very little children with a huge explanation that then leaves the child confused and not understanding really what is happening. And this creates in the child's mind, what is going to happen to me? Have I got to change school? Am I losing my friends? That anxiety then builds, and you will see it, those of you that are from schools, I think you will see how that impacts on a child in class. And so one of the things that is key to our work is encouraging that parents think about what they say to their children first. It's very easy, as we know from what you've said, that folks that have intense feelings of anger and frustration are likely to blurt something out. We want to encourage folks to stop and think before they do that. The fourth principle is that we support parents and encourage them to set up their life as a single parent. We know, again, that divorce involves a great deal of change from being part of a married couple or a couple to a single parent. And this involves numerous tasks, including negotiating the legal process of divorce, deciding on practical terms such as home, school, work, managing financial matters, learning new skills, and accessing support services. Parents also need to take care of themselves, and that is another thing that we support parents in starting to think about as they set out on their lives as single people again, because we know that healthy people are more inclined to make better decisions. We support them in managing those difficult emotions, those emotions of anger, resentment, hurt, stress and depression and anxiety. And indeed coming to terms with the change, the feelings of grief, someone said in the audience today, and loss that is associated with divorce. Loss of dreams, loss of hope, loss of home, loss of lifestyle, loss of friends. And we encourage them to develop and maintain a support network around them and form new relationships. So the work at Dorset Family Matters works on all those key principles in supporting families, because we know that if families can be encouraged to access support services, that the mediation process that Sam alluded to, it goes much more swiftly and easily, and folks can reach a decision more quickly and proceed to the more amicable divorce process. But Dorset Family Matters is one of many services out there that provide a range of support to folks that are going through a divorce or separation process. And I suppose we're here today to encourage you to encourage parents to look for other support services so that they can continue to be family A and not fall into family B or C. Some of the work that I'm delighted to say that I'll be doing is coming to the Epicentre on a Thursday morning to provide some sort of, we call it cafe coaching actually, for parents who just want to drop in, buy a coffee and sit perhaps and have a chat about a range of issues, including the one that we're speaking of today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Annette. So certainly Annette's spoken about the need for a range of types of support. But so in summary so far, couples who break up deal with their situations in different ways. Whether they're married, unmarried, have children or are childless, are rich, poor or generally of general average means. What they do and how they decide to go about it will have legal implications, and they will often benefit from specialist legal advice. But how a family break up and how that's dealt with is so often not a legal issue, but a non-legal issue. But what they do can have some serious legal ramifications for the adults, children and wider family involved. Because acrimonious disputes can be costly, not just in legal fees, but also in terms of stress and distress of the families, which we've already noted at the beginning of the presentation. So how can couples break up without entirely breaking down? Well, it's easier said than done, and success cannot be guaranteed in any case. But we certainly believe in a team approach, that there should be access to a range of different services, legal and non-legal, with professionals working together and helping educate and inform the family and wider community and their own families as well. I often hear stories of couples who are breaking up and they've had advice from a friend down the pub or another parent at a school gate, and those other lay people who've had their own experience, maybe positive or negative, but it's based on that other family. It's not the actual couple who are having the problem, and there's still going to be a uniqueness to whoever's going through this difficult time. And really the best advice to provide is to guide people in the right direction, to talk to experts in their fields. So it's with this in mind that Kiteleys, together with Annette and Dorset Family Matters and a range of other legal and non-legal professionals in the area, are trying an experiment. It is in its early days, but I'll just quickly click onto a Facebook page. First, Dorset Family Dispute Resolution Hub. Kind of a lengthy title, we haven't got a better summary. And I must stress, it is in an early stage of development, and there's a lot of work to be done between the members who are involved in this project on how best to coordinate assessment and referral, and working with other organisations to make sure families are guided in the right direction. Because sometimes at an early stage, non-legal help is going to benefit the family to overcome the emotions and the distresses. Annette has said her own and other organisations can help. So there are other positive and constructive ways of resolving problems. Mediation is one. For those who are not familiar with that process, a couple can meet with a neutral person. They may be a lawyer, but that person is not there to advise, but they're there to help them discuss rather than argue and suggest compromise. That is not suitable for all people. Some people prefer to sit down around a table, but the dialogue is still the key part. But if a couple can sit down around a table with lawyers who are specially trained, and sometimes in those scenarios where the lawyers and couple are sat down, it's not again about positioning and arguing, but about being realistic, assessing and sorting out what there are. Finite amount of resources, finite amount of time and days in the week to spend with children, and to have a reality check as to options available and pros and cons as to the problem solving. There's seldom one single solution, and in particular there's one method of sitting around a table with specially trained lawyers, which can often involve other non-legal professionals, experts in their own field, to deal with dialogue and communication issues, where the couple agree not to go to court. They specifically agree not to do that, and the lawyers agree that if things cannot go beyond B towards C, that those lawyers themselves will not remain involved. That's called the collaborative family law process. But the key aspect is dialogue, and when people are emotionally breaking up, that dialogue is often very, very hard, and there's often work to be done with input from the right types of organisation with the right types of skills. So there's no one solution. It's about identifying the needs of the family and fitting the skills available to what that family need, rather than the family becoming funneled in to the traditional acrimonious and often, at the worst, litigious route. So I'm going to hand back to Graham now. He's going to ask for your input again,